My name's Gabby Hewitt. I work with Justin here at Education Elements. And like many of you, we've spent pretty much the last few months thinking about how can we take our processes that existed in our formal structures and sort of tweak them for the new normal. And one of those is around this idea of building a culture of belonging. So that's really what we're excited to chat with you about today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justin DeLeon. Been with Ed Elements for a while now, taught in Miami where I live and also in the Bay Area in San Jose. And one thing, like as a teacher that I valued greatly at the schools I worked at was the belonging I felt. And we are hoping to give you some ideas and ways of thinking about creating a culture of belonging with the teachers you support.
So I won't read this entire slide with you, but Justin and I have been chatting over the last few weeks about what we were hoping to pack into the hour that felt both meaningful, but also not overwhelming and very practical, meaning you could leave this session and have something that you could implement right away. Justin's really going to sort of give us an idea of how we can think about belonging and what that might look like through the lens of a framework. I will share with you a case study. So one of our most recent and most explicit examples of how an organization built this culture of belonging and how we could actually apply that to our educational setting. And then we're also going to give you some practical strategies. So we're going to break down that case study and we're going to say, okay, this organization did this. Here is a strategy you could try. So we're hoping it feels like a good mix of sort of the feel good, this is what belonging is, but also like this is how you build it. And you leave walking away with one thing you want to test out. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Justin to talk about why this matters.
So as many of you are experiencing and seeing, unfortunately, in response to the pandemic, many more teachers are leaving the classroom. There was a survey done by NEA, and they found that 28% of teachers said the pandemic has made them more likely to leave or retire early. And there's no simple answer, as we all know, to figure out how to get teachers to stay. One thing we can consider, though, is how we are sensitive to and being intentional about creating belonging. The other reality is that there are many teachers of color that are leaving the classroom because of a lack of feeling belonging. And a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, we had Derica Blackman. She came and she did a session with the Education Elements team. And she shared this quote: diversity is a fact, inclusion is a strategy, belonging is a measure, and equity is the goal. So we all aspire to have more equitable districts, more equitable schools, right, and places of learning. What we don't always consider and thinking about is the role of belonging and how critical belonging is in furthering our goals, right, and getting closer to equity. And so research also shows that people really don't feel belonging at work. In education, outside of education, this is not unique to teaching. You see it across many different sectors, but a Deloitte study found of more than 3,000 people that 61% of people cover or mask at work. So they're not comfortable bringing their whole selves to work because they don't feel a great sense of belonging. That number is even higher for employees who are Black or gay. And the cost of that is really great because you're not able to tap into people's full potential. Employees don't feel comfortable. And this applies to teachers as well, right? And we know that organizations where individuals have a great sense of belonging, they're a lot more engaged, right? They're a lot more energized by their work, their team, and they ultimately perform better.
So want to share this case study. A few years ago, some members of Justin and our team, we were able to go to a conference on how organizations can become more responsive. And we were able to hear from a company that everybody probably knows by now, but Airbnb. And what Justin and I have done is we've said, okay, and here's a strategy that you guys can do to sort of recreate the same thing. What Airbnb did was they had intentional invitations, right? Active hospitality, even down to the CEO saying, I would love to just have lunch with you and meet you and learn about you. And so he did that for the first 300 hires. Not only was he a part of every one of their interviews, but he also made it a point to meet them face to face in their first few months at the company. This idea of knowing and accepting, right? What the strategy they used is not just knowing what someone's passion was, knowing someone's why, but also showing that out, right? And so, I was really passionate about having more responsive leaders because I've been in situations where I was a direct report to responsive and non-responsive leaders. And so knowing, someone at the company who had more power than me when I first joined Ed Elements, knowing that when an opportunity came up to actually work on responsive leadership, they were like, Gabby, totally you. Like, this is something that you're passionate about. And so showing how they're known as sort of that second part that shouldn't be forgotten. For participating and contributing, thinking about authentic engagement, sharing how a voice makes the community better. But we added an asterisk here because sometimes this also means being willing to give critical feedback, right? And not having that culture of nice when it comes to giving feedback. You know, Justin, I really love that email you sent. It probably needed to be a little bit clearer, but great job, right? Like, I started with a praise. I gave them the feedback I actually wanted. I ended with a praise. This idea of knowing contributions are valued is sometimes going to come with having that mutual respect to give really critical feedback. And then that last thing we mentioned, what they did is they said, if we want people to personally grow and have these personal connections, we need them to see that being a part of this community makes our community better, but it also makes that person better for being a part of it too. So that is a lot about Airbnb. I don't work for them, but I do love this story about how they sort of created this framework for belonging. And I also think some of the strategies that we share fit really nicely with some of these dimensions as well. But wanted to encourage you to join the conversation. We're pretty active on Twitter in terms of not only sharing out new resources that we come up with, but also hearing from you. We use a lot of different data points to see what's happening in education. This is one other way. A lot of our resources that we either shared, linked to the slides, or that we created are going to show up on our blog as well. So feel free to subscribe to that. And then I also want to share that we have a lot of opportunities to talk about webinars and different content, different topics, not just around belonging, but we're continuing that through the month of October. And so encourage you to check out our website. It's just @elements.com if you want to download any of those or sign up for any of them. And then there's a few virtual events that we have coming up. One of them we're really excited about is this distance learning road race. So feel free to join us for any of these virtual events, including this virtual race.